Now, with those casualties, with that viewpoint, they're starting to prepare, as I said, for this assault on My Lai. Back to the book. Although no written record of the briefing survives, witnesses all agree on the general thrust of Kutak's contribution. This is the intelligence officer. The 48th LF Battalion was dispersed throughout the area. But the latest intelligence, the assembled officers were told, suggested that VC headquarters and 2 companies totaling over 200 fighting men were located in My Lai 4. The civilian population were all active sympathizers with the VC. By 7 in the morning, most non-combatants would have left the village for the market. So, just to make that clear, what we're expecting. They're expecting to go in to My Lai and find over 200 fighting men. And all active sympathizers with the VC. Now, they start to ask some questions like, okay, what at the task force level? Back to the book. What was to happen to the village itself? Task force officers left the meeting with the clear impression that Barker had ordered the destruction of all houses, dwellings, and livestock in the My Lai area, although there is some doubt as to whether this was a direct order or something that had been assumed. Kutak recalled Barker saying that the village was to be destroyed. He wanted the area cleaned out, he wanted it neutralized, and he wanted the buildings knocked down. He wanted the hooches burned, he wanted the tunnels filled, and he wanted the livestock and chickens run off, killed, or destroyed. He wanted to neutralize the area. For Medina, also, those were Barker's clear instructions. And what was to happen to the civilians? There is nothing to suggest that Barker explicitly ordered the murder of ordinary people of My Lai. But the previous failures of the task force and the demand for more aggression, the intelligence picture of a community entirely controlled by the Viet Cong, the bland assumption that civilians would be gone to the market, the totally unjustified belief that innocent people had been warned to get out of the area, in other words, the entire scorched earth concept of the operation planned to neutralize the area, drove irresistibly to the conclusion that here was a free fire zone in which even the people were to be eliminated. Now, that's the company commanders getting the brief from the battalion commander, from the task force commander. That's the impression that they get. Now we start to get into your Chinese telephone game. Because now, how does that get translated down the chain of command? And even with the battalion commander talking to the company commanders, it's not super solid what the actual orders were. It's not super solid. No one said, hey, they said kill women and children. It's kind of implied, well, maybe he said he wanted everyone destroyed. What does destroyed mean? Mm-hmm. So now we get to where Medina is talking to his troops and his subordinate leadership, the company commander. Medina grabbed a shovel from a quarter-ton trailer and drew a map of My Lai 4 in the dirt at his feet as he described the coming engagement. Tomorrow, he told them, was Charlie Company's chance to get even. Medina relayed what he had learned at Barker's briefing earlier in the afternoon. The 48th Viet Cong Battalion were in My Lai with a strength of between 250 and 280. So actually, he just increased that number because the report that he was given was 200. Now he's saying between 250 and 280. Mm-hmm. This meant that Charlie Company would be outnumbered more than 2-1. But they were not to worry because helicopter gunships would be on the American side. He told them to expect a hell of a good fight. He told them that all innocent civilians would have gone to the market. He's just amplifying what he was told. But what was going to happen to the village? I told them we had permission. Colonel Barker had received permission that the village could be destroyed since it was a VC stronghold, to burn down the houses, to kill all the livestock, to cut any of the crops that might feed the VC, to cave the wells and destroy the village. And what was going to happen to the innocent civilians? Somebody at the briefing asked him, do we kill women and children? It was an astounding question that speaks volumes about the temper of the men, but the fact that such a question was indeed asked is not disputed. Where testimony is divided is what Medina replied. My reply to that question was, no, you do not kill women and children. You must use common sense. If they have a weapon and are trying to engage you, then you can shoot back, but you must use common sense. But many of the men got a different message. This is Sergeant Hodges' recollection of the briefing. This was a time for us to get even, a time for us to settle the score, a time for revenge. When we can get revenge for our fallen comrades. The order we were given was to kill and destroy everything that was in the village. It was to kill the pigs, drop them in the wells, pollute the water supply, kill, cut down the banana trees, burn the village, burn the hooches as we went through it. It was clearly explained that there were to be no prisoners. That order was given. The order that was given was to kill everyone in the village. Someone asked if that meant the women and children, and the order was everyone in the village. Because those people in that village, the women, the kids, the old men, were VC. They were Viet Cong themselves, or they were sympathetic to the Viet Cong. They were not sympathetic to the Americans. It was quite clear that no one was to be spared in that village. So pretty clear what Sergeant Hodges thought. So Medina says, no, I didn't tell them. I told them they had to use their common sense. If they're shooting at you, then you kill them. Hodges didn't hear that. And back to the book, Sergeant Hodges was not alone in his interpretation of Medina's briefing. Many senior NCOs left the meeting convinced that the order was to kill everyone. Staff Sergeant Bacon, we were to kill all Viet Cong and all Viet Cong sympathizers in the village. Sergeant West, it was a search and destroy mission. We were to kill everything. Staff Sergeant Fagan, kill everyone. Sergeant Cowan, to kill everything that was in the village. Enlisted men too. Glimpse, Lamartina, Gonzalez, Lloyd, Parsh, Moss later testified that this is what they heard. Flynn even remembered the question. Someone asked, are we supposed to kill women and children? And Medina replied, kill everything that moves. Harry Stanley said, Captain Medina told us that the intelligence had established that My Lai 4 was completely enemy controlled. He described the formations we were to use following day and told us to carry extra ammunition. He ordered us to kill everything in the village. The men in my squad talked about amongst ourselves that night because the order to kill everything in the village was so unusual. We all agreed that Captain Medina meant for us to kill every man, woman, and child in the village. But not everyone agreed that Medina had ordered everyone in the village to be killed. Greg Olson, whose foreboding letter to his father had been posted only 2 days before, has a completely different recollection of the briefing. There clearly absolutely wasn't an order to go in and slaughter everybody in that village, and anybody that says so is a liar. Medina said that any villagers were to be rounded up and airlifted to refugee camps. That was specifically addressed in the meeting. If I thought I was going to get on a helicopter that morning with clear orders that I was going to slaughter every living, breathing human being in that village, I'm sure to God it would have been so appalling and unthinkable. I mean, I'm not that stupid. I know they couldn't have forced me to do something like that. Others, too, denied there was any explicit order. It was like Medina's benediction, Michael Bernhardt said. He didn't actually say to kill every man, woman, and child in My Lai. He stopped just short of saying that. He gave every other indication that that's what he expected. Whatever Medina actually said, there can be no doubt about the impression he made to get the most of the men. To hurt pride, he offered satisfaction. To grieving soldiers, he offered a chance to strike back. To bitter and resentful men, he offered an end to the frustration. Medina let slip the dogs of war. My Lai 4 was thrown in the path of their vindictiveness and fury. Charlie Company was going to get its revenge. The task force would get its body count. This time, there would be no mistake. So, that's the attitude that these guys roll into the operation with. And it is not the right attitude to have going into the situation. Because in case you haven't figured this out yet, the village that they're going into, there's no battalion of Viet Cong fighters. There's no fighters at all.